Heather Foxfield cries, not wanting to go home. But she cannot afford to show her weakness. In her house, there is a large collection of dried insects. This is her husband Simon's hobby. Somewhere around here, there is clearly a wasp nest, but Simon has yet to address the issue. And anyway, today he will return late because he allegedly has an important meeting. Heather dreams of becoming a mother, but it seems the husband doesn't care. Before leaving, Simon reminded his wife about tomorrow's dinner at their home. Everything has to go perfectly. Right now wine is Heather's only solace. Her married life has no other joys. At some point she remembered her school friend, Carla Jackson, whom she hadn't spoken to in many years. Now Heather has everything. A luxurious house and money, but it doesn't make her happy. Simon only returned at night. Heather was awake, constantly thinking about Carla, who often showed cruelty as a teenager. In the morning when Simon left for work, Heather wanted to text Carla on Facebook, but at the last moment she changed her mind. Heather always carries a so-called worry stone in her pocket. It calms her down. She set the table, preparing to host guests at their home this evening. A buzzing from the ventilation is constantly audible, and it gets on her nerves. During dinner, Heather was very distant, ignoring the guests and watching wasps fly out of the vent. At one point an insect stung her. Unable to take it any longer, Heather grabbed a hammer and started breaking the ceiling. Seeing this, Simon became angry. The wasp nest fell to the floor, and the insects scattered all over the house. The dinner was hopelessly ruined. After seeing off the guests, Simon demanded an explanation from his wife for her irrational behavior. Heather was silent, and Simon first yelled at her, then promised to call an exterminator tomorrow. Heather feels like she has nothing left to lose. This made her think of Carla again. Unlike Heather, Carla's life hasn't worked out. She works as a cashier in a supermarket and is very tired of stupid customers. Carla is pregnant again. She never expected to receive a message from her former classmate, asking to meet at a cafe tomorrow. Carla received another message from Logan Bryant, who offered to help with her bills in exchange for spending time together. Tonight she also intended to meet with James, but later. Carla has long been overdue to be home. She lives in a shabby apartment, where 4 children and an unemployed husband who constantly sleeps and watches TV await her. Carla is forced to meet with different men to make ends meet. Today it was James. Carla's life seems hopeless, she doesn't even want to return home to her family. Money is catastrophically scarce. This made Carla think about the proposal from her old school acquaintance. The next day they met in a cafe. Carla has what Heather has always dreamed of, children. But Carla did not look happy at all, directly asking Heather what she wanted. Heather avoided the subject, asking her former classmate how she was doing. Carla shared that motherhood is hard work, and her husband does not help with raising the kids at all. Therefore a 5th pregnancy is unwanted for Carla. For a time in school, Carla was Heather's only friend, as other classmates bullied her. Now she had changed a lot, but fate had brought the girls together again. Heather couldn't bring herself to the part of the conversation for which she was actually here. Carla needed to be at work in half an hour, so she had to leave. Heather followed her, even though it was clear Carla was not in the mood to talk. Heather shared that she and her husband had been unable to have a child for a long time. Carla wouldn't understand this, as she succeeded on her first try. She is convinced that the problem is always with the men, but Heather knows for sure that the problem lies with her. Carla thought that Heather wanted to adopt her unborn child. But Heather had something entirely different in mind. This was meant to be a strictly confidential conversation. Heather knows that the husband has been unfaithful to her. It's been going on for 2 years. To check on Simon, Heather even created a fake account and messaged him. He responded and suggested they meet. Heather pretended to be a woman who lived abroad. Carla no longer wanted to listen, but Heather was very persistent, following her into the supermarket. Remembering Carla's tendency toward cruelty, Heather wanted to make her an offer, with a price tag of £50,000. Upon hearing this, Carla couldn't help but be intrigued. But when Heather suggested that she take Simon's life, Carla was, to put it mildly, shocked. Heather explained that the husband had destroyed her emotionally, and that's why she wanted him to cease to exist. Heather was also aware of Carla's financial problems and the fact that her husband was a gambling addict. Heather knows this because she is Logan Bryant, who had been messaging Carla on Facebook. Heather had been forced to do this to find out more. Carla called Heather a psychopath. As a teenager, Carla had indeed been capable of cruelty, but that didn't mean she was crazy. Or was she? Suddenly Carla reconsidered, naming her price, $75,000. At home, Heather continued to play the role of a perfect wife, while Carla played the role of a servant for her elderly husband. Today the women were going to put their plan into action. Carla is determined, desperately needing the money and wanting to escape her worthless life. As agreed, Carla came to Heather's house while Simon was at work. Carla wanted to work out the details so she wouldn't mess up and end up in jail. $75,000 isn't worth that after all. Carla had already studied all the necessary information on a library computer and knew the common mistakes criminals make. First and foremost, she needed an alibi. If it happened at night, Carla's husband would think she was asleep, so that wouldn't be an issue. It had to look like a robbery. Though Heather wasn't sure this was the best option, as she didn't want to lose any of her possessions. Therefore Heather had another plan. She would simply mix a sleeping pill into Simon's dinner, and Carla would handle the rest and dispose of the body. Heather in turn would destroy all of Simon's documents and some of his belongings, so it would look like he fled abroad to his mistress. Carla thought there were many flaws in this plan, not understanding why Heather wanted to get rid of her husband instead of just divorcing him. But for Heather, punishing Simon was crucial. In the end, the women agreed that Heather would get him drunk to the point of unconsciousness. After that, Carla would use something heavy to do the rest. It would look like a failed robbery. The women rehearsed everything so that Heather's hysteria the next day would look believable. Carla is surprised by Heather's pettiness, as she only cares about her things. Carla also emphasized that Heather should be well prepared for the upcoming police interrogation. It's inevitable. Carla remained the same as she was in school. Her commanding look alone could bring anyone to submission. Preparing for the crime would take her about 2 weeks. That suited Heather perfectly. She made it clear that once the deed was done, they would go their separate ways. Heather wanted no continuation of this story, and if Carla later tried to blackmail her, they would both end up in prison. Carla found Simon's insect collection repulsive. On the other hand, it was impressive. Those creepy little creatures are capable of causing immense physical pain with their venom. The decision to get rid of her husband had not been easy for Heather, but she had already made up her mind. Simon had caused her so much pain and deserved the worst fate. The world wouldn't miss him. Now Heather wants to see Carla as a friend again, though she clearly doesn't feel the same way. Heather spent her teenage years in deep depression, but Carla thinks that's nothing unusual. Every teenager goes through that. In school, the girls stopped being friends after Carla told everyone that Heather was in love with Toby. Everyone started laughing at her. In the present, this led to a conflict between the women. Carla is annoyed that Heather judges her because in reality she has no idea what things were really like. Carla became inclined toward cruelty because life with the parents was a nightmare. The father treated her mother and her badly, while Heather had a loving family. Suddenly Heather told Carla that she had always guessed that her father was abusive. That was why Heather once wanted to support Carla and started being friends with her. But things didn't go as she had hoped. Heather still can't let go of the past when she was bullied in school. And Carla joined in on that bullying so she wouldn't be an outcast alongside Heather. In the present, Carla doesn't see it as important anymore because they were just kids. She only wants to do her job and get the promised money. But Heather apparently had other plans. Seeing Simon's photo, Carla was horrified to realize that he was James, one of her clients. So James was an alias. Heather knew everything from the start. She also began to suspect that the father of Carla's unborn child was Simon. Heather knocked out her former friend, then wrote a note and slid it into the mail slot of the neighbor's house. Carla woke up tied up. Heather started talking about motherhood. Is it really happiness, or is it as difficult as Carla claimed? Heather now understands why it didn't work out for her. In 9th grade, when she made new friends, they convinced her to go to the school dance. But as soon as Carla came with her group, Heather immediately wanted to leave and was going to call her mom. But Carla and her friends followed Heather, intending to have some more fun. She locked herself in the school bathroom and started crying. Carla said in a honeyed voice that they could wait all evening. Heather had no choice but to open the door. There were 3 girls. They grabbed Heather and did something horrible to her. Recalling this in the present, Heather can't hold back her emotions. It ruined her life. At that very moment, Carla whispered to Heather that she had done well. Because of this, Heather became infertile. And although Carla stopped tormenting her after that, it was more than enough. When Heather went to another room, Carla tried to escape but to no avail. After changing clothes, Heather came back downstairs and found Carla on the floor. Heather immediately pulled her back up. So, Heather knows she can't have children because of that night, even though she is physically healthy. Now Carla has only one chance to explain her actions. But she only worries about what Heather is going to do to her. Carla truly regrets what happened, but she was just a troubled teenager. Carla burst into tears, begging Heather to let her go home to her children. But Heather was unyielding. Carla offered for Heather to adopt her unborn child in exchange for money, plus Simon as the father. However, Heather is categorically against it. She would like to find the strength to forgive Carla, but the past can't be undone. Suddenly Heather declared that Simon might already be dead. And maybe she's going to do the same to Carla, who drove her to this point. If only people were a bit kinder to each other, this could have been avoided. Carla started calling for help, which attracted the attention of the neighbor's little girl, Ruby. Heather forced Carla to be silent again. Suddenly a message came through on her phone. Heather ignored it, putting on her makeup. Her whole life she had dreamed of getting pregnant to give all her love to a child. But when she found out about Simon's betrayal, it destroyed everything good in Heather. The worst part was that his lover was the one who had ruined her life. This was how Heather learned what it meant to hate. Believing that Carla wouldn't escape, Heather cut the ropes. However, Carla predictably rushed to the door. Heather pushed her to the floor, but it didn't stop Carla. Ruby saw the chase between the two women through the window. Carla ran upstairs, hoping to escape through the window, but it was locked. Heather promised not to harm her, and Carla stepped out. Heather truly felt sorry that Carla's childhood had been so hard. Things could have been different. When asked if she really took Simon's life, Heather remained silent. Carla believed Heather was far more cruel than she was. Unlike Heather, Carla had never devised anything twisted. She had only been a teenager acting on impulse. So it turns out all people are the same. At the core, everyone is driven by instinct. To prove she wasn't the same, Heather put her knife down. Carla grew cautious when Heather began approaching with her hand in her pocket. Thinking there was another knife, Carla attacked Heather, fatally injuring her. At that moment Simon returned and witnessed the horrifying scene. It all looked as if Carla had taken the life of her lover's wife. Heather passed away right in Simon's arms. It took Carla a moment to realize what she had done. But Ruby's mother thought Simon had conspired with Carla. Heather's note asking for help confirmed it. Thus she had avenged the two people who had poisoned her life. The police arrived, ready to arrest Simon and Carla. In the final scene, we see a wasp crawling out of Heather's jacket pocket. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel not to miss more exciting new products. Also, the authors will be pleased if you leave your opinion in the comments.